climate and environmental crisis is rooted in an economic model that exploits people and planet, while increasing inequalities and violence. States and corporations repress people fighting for access to natural resources, indigenous people and ethnic minorities, rural women, and many others. However, movements around the world are resisting and creating solutions to local needs for land, water, food, and energy. From Pacific Island feminists to the Black Mesa Water Coalition, frontline communities are building sustainable, long-term solutions. What if we replace profit with safety, well-being, justice, health, and sustainability? What if people and planet were the center of our solutions? What if we listen to stories of resistance and connect with feminist and ancestral knowledge? It's time for change and the redistribution of wealth and resources. It's time to hear feminist voices and build solutions that benefit all people and the planet.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning for those maybe in the United States. Good evening for some. Welcome to the Geneva, Vienna NGO CSW Consultation Day for the CSW66. My name is Carolyn Hanshin. I am the president of the NGO CSW in Geneva, which, for those of you who don't know, is a network of international NGOs. This group in particular is based in Geneva, working with the UN entities and institutions in Geneva. We are working in partnership with the NGO CSW in Vienna for this particular event. I am also the director of the United Nations offices for the Women's Federation for World Peace International. We are proud and even excited to open this event, which we have been preparing for months. And I think we have something very special to offer to you. This is the second annual Consultation Day that Geneva has taken on. Last year, we did this under a theme, Women's Rights Advocates in International Geneva, the Heart of Human Rights and Service to Humanity. This year, as I mentioned, we are doing this in partnership, and we have invited Vienna to work together with us, and it's been really a great experience working together. I think most of you know that the theme for this year's Commission on the Status of Women is about gender equality, environmental policy, and disaster reduction. And it gives us an opportunity to promote the new Human Rights Council resolution on the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, a historic decision. Never before in history have we seen such a focus as now on the environment, such an enthusiasm, such a solidarity globally to try to really work towards a healthier environment. Even 9 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are connecting with that issue. Our audience today is surely very mixed. I've heard from some from South Africa and India, even California, and surely intergenerational. We have experts, human rights advocates. We have very young participants, maybe listening in for the first time to debates on the environment, hoping to find something to invest their creative and passionate concern for nature and the environment. I hope we can help you to find those opportunities. We have been working over several months, as mentioned, with our partner in Geneva, our partners in Vienna, and we have prepared an event that not only explores the issues, even here in our own region, related to the environment and women, but also we have put together a special call to collective action to address this triple planetary crisis of climate change, nature and diversity, biodiversity loss, and pollution and waste. UN Environmental Program has a program called Act for Nature, which is also very interesting. We have more information about that in our advocacy resources. We hope to provide you with knowledge, tools, and incentive today, we hope, to engage yourselves even maybe becoming leaders in your communities for this important global concern that we all share about our home, our planet. We all want to impact our world around us, and we can do this much better in solidarity. So this is a call for civil society, yes, women and youth, but families, men, actually all ages, all people. So we have been working together over these months with our partners and especially our youth team in both offices, preparing a declaration, a call to action, some very exciting resources and education tools that we will introduce to you later in the program. And we hope that you can take those with you and really use them in your communities. We also have a petition that you can take advantage of this opportunity to hold governments accountable to their commitments on the environment, and also, of course, educate yourselves more about these issues. We advise doing this in a spirit of real partnership by first learning about these commitments and then deciding to fill them together with your governments in your local communities. We had invited our Madame Michelle Bachelet, who is the High Commissioner for Human Rights, to be with us today. But as you can imagine, she is pulled in many directions right now, especially because of the situation in Eastern Europe, but others. But she wrote she sent a letter to us, a very appreciative letter to us, wishing us the best for this event and for this effort that we're making for some real global campaign for the environment, really working together with civil society. Now I would like to introduce to you a video, a gentleman, some of you may know him. His name is Dr. David Boyd. He was in Geneva this week at the Human Rights Council giving his report. He is the Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in the Environment. He was present at the time that this very historic Human Rights Council resolution was passed in October, just not so many months ago, 2021. And his description of that right after the passing of that resolution was, to reach this historic day took literally millions of people and years of work. He has a very encouraging and appreciative message for us today. Please.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Boyd, the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and the Environment, with a very exciting message for all of you. Last year, on Friday, October the 8th, 2021, the UN Human Rights Council recognized for the first time at the global level that everyone, everywhere, has the right to live in a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. This marked a really historic moment in the evolution of international human rights. And I have to say that this resolution would not have been possible were it not for the leadership of a group of incredibly brilliant and dedicated women, including the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, UN Environment Program Leader, Inger Anderson, the President of the UN Human Rights Council, Ambassador Nazhat Shamim Khan from Fiji, and a group of amazing diplomats, including from Costa Rica, Ambassador Catalina Devandas Aguilar, Ambassador Shara Duncan Villalobos, and Mariana Castro Hernandez, as well as Ambassador Anita Pipan from Slovenia. So this was really an initiative where the leaders were women. And this adoption of the resolution on the right to a healthy environment really gives me hope that we can achieve the kinds of transformative changes in our society that the world's leading scientists from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services are telling us that we urgently need. If we look back over the past several centuries of human evolution, we can see that human rights, when harnessed by civil society, can in fact be catalysts for transformative changes. Consider the abolition of slavery, the emancipation of women, or the abolition of apartheid in South Africa. None of these transformative changes are quick or easy, but they do indicate that human rights and civil society, when working together, can achieve incredibly positive changes for society. And today, of course, we all know that we face an unprecedentedly severe global environmental crisis, the climate emergency, the decline of biological diversity, and the pervasiveness of pollution and toxic substances. And so in the light of these existential threats, the recognition of the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment really gives us a sense of hope and empowerment. And the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment includes both substantive elements as well as procedural elements. On the substantive side, it means we all have a right to clean air, safe and sufficient water, healthy and sustainably produced food, a safe climate, healthy ecosystems and biodiversity, and non-toxic environments where we can live, work, study, and play. And it also comes with a toolbox of access rights, including access to information, participation in environmental decision-making, and access to justice with effective remedies where our rights are being threatened or violated. And I don't think it comes as any secret that while everyone in the world is affected by environmental degradation, the most harmful effects are felt disproportionately by certain potentially vulnerable, marginalized, and disadvantaged communities, including women, children, older persons, persons with disabilities, Indigenous peoples, minorities, migrants, and people living in poverty. And while these groups may be victims of environmental degradation, they can also be incredible agents of change when empowered to take action. And that's really part of the beauty of the recognition of the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, is that it does empower people. It empowers civil society. It empowers women to be full and meaningful participants in debates about environmental policy making, in acting to address the global environmental crisis. So I think that this recognition of the right to a healthy environment should serve to bring us all together, because as humans, yes, we have many differences, but one thing that we all have in common is that we all need a healthy planet Earth in order to survive and to thrive and to prosper. So I hope that we can work together in the coming months and years to implement the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. Women will undoubtedly, along with girls, play a leading role in this implementation challenge. And I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you for everything you do to protect people and the planet. Take care, and we'll see you down the road.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Boyd, for the many things that you have said to us, things that will be coming up during this session. And maybe just to highlight the fact that that is an avenue through his work at the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. As we do our work together around the world, it is an opportunity also to send reports into his office of what we are doing, and even possibly finding ourselves in his report, his annual report, his report that he is making to the Human Rights Council. So thank you again, Dr. Boyd. And I'd like to now introduce to you our partner, the president of the NGO Committee on the Status of Women in Vienna, Evelyn Durmeyer, who is actually coming to us from New York. So she is actually attending the commission in person in New York, representing, I think, the many of us who were unable to travel at this time. So Evelyn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Caroline, for giving me the floor. Yes, I'm in New York and it's not a very nice weather that welcomes me here. It's raining and snowing in the afternoon, but still it's very enticing to be here in the Austrian delegation to CSW66. And I thank you and Dr. Boyd for their so much engaging words and showing what could be done to get a clean, safe, and sustainable planet for all of us. I don't want to repeat what you both said, and I think we should start our event with all these incredible engagements from scientists from the Vienna part and from the youth part together with Geneva. So we could have more initiative from the ground and from the science to work on this common issue. We have still a long way to go, but we shouldn't give up. We should continue to struggle for the clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. Thank you.
Climate change is an increasingly urgent threat multiplier, exacerbating inequalities, spurring conflict, political instability, and increasing displacement. Women bear the brunt of climate change and its impact on physical health, livelihoods, food insecurity, and gender-based violence. United Nations agencies, the World Economic Forum, the Interparliamentary Union, and civil society have all urgently called for gender-responsive action to the climate crisis. We cannot avert climate-induced catastrophe or meet climate goals without women. In fact, women have been at the forefront of climate change since Eunice Newton-Foote was the first scientist to discover the link between increased CO2 in the atmosphere and planetary warming, way back in 1856. Indigenous women continue to brave the front lines of protest against fossil fuel extraction. Young women and girls lead by example and have galvanized millions around the world through Fridays for Future's school strikes, community groups, and activism to draw attention to the rapidly worsening climate crisis. Women are on the front lines of climate solutions too, inventing and sharing new technologies, deploying indigenous and regenerative agricultural practices, building zero waste and circular economy business models, managing renewable energy, and water and forest conservation actions as entrepreneurs and women's groups. As Melinda Gates says, women are not just victims of a broken world. They can be architects of a better one. This is why we need gender-responsive climate action.
Hello, everyone. It is my privilege to be able to introduce a panel that focuses on a particular segment of women that are integrally involved in the issues surrounding this topic of climate change and the empowering of women and girls in the context of climate change and the impact they have on behalf of a safe, clean, healthy, sustainable environment. Rural women, as you probably well know, make up 1/4 of the world's population. And while their work and well-being have been critically impacted by climate change, they are also essential to maintaining and improving family and community livelihoods and strengthening both rural and urban communities. However, in this effort, the basic human rights of rural women are often compromised, and rural women are often more vulnerable and do not have access to their basic human rights, one of which being this healthy environment. Because they do have struggles gaining equal access to land and are vulnerable to displacement, violence, oftentimes discrimination, and inequalities in their basic rights to life, health, food, water, and sanitation. So our panel is calling for the empowerment of leadership of rural women as integral to this clean, healthy, sustainable environment. In fact, the empowerment of rural women benefits everyone, and urban women included. For instance, when rural women have access to land, there are improvements in household welfare and agricultural productivity, as well as in the amount of food that's produced. And in that instance, if women farmers have access to the same resources as men, there would be 150 million fewer hungry people in the world. So as drivers of sustainable development in agricultural food production, nutrition, poverty reduction, and technology and research, rural women are essential to this issue. And as a response to the resolution that Dr. David Boyd has mentioned, the right to a clean, healthy, sustainable environment, this session will address the empowerment of women and girls. And it will, in the context of climate change and the policies and the programs and practices that create a safe and sustainable environment. First, I will introduce briefly two speakers that you see on the screen, and more complete bios for each of them will appear in the chat. Christine and Theresia will each give a presentation and then engage in a bit of a dialogue discussing touch points between the research and the grassroots experience of rural women. Please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A. Christine Alten-Buchner is currently senior lecturer and researcher at the Institute for Sustainable Economic Development, University of Natural Resources and Life Sciences in Vienna, and a visiting research at Earth Institute, Columbia University in the US. She is remarkable and has expertise in rural development and has done research in places like Eastern Africa, India, and Peru. And we look forward to hearing from Christine. Theresia Oedel-Wieder is head of the Department of Rural Social Research and Library at the Federal Institute of Agricultural Economics in Vienna, Austria, and has been a research associate there since 2019. She has received a doctorate degree in regional policy and rural sociology and a master's degree of sociology and journalism and communication sciences. Christine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Carol. I will shortly share my slides with you. I hope you can see that. Thank you, Carol. My name is Christina Altenbuchner from the University of Natural Resources and Life Sciences in Vienna. And as you already mentioned, at our university, at our institute, we are working on investigating sustainable initiatives and climate change. And we are looking into social aspects of environmental issues. I want to start with the picture in the center. You can see these women. I took this picture when I visited these women in East India, so in the state of Orissa, where a lot of tribal indigenous groups are living. During the time I visited these women, these female farmers, the monsoon was extremely late, and they were very worried about this situation. Although they look happy on the picture, they were really afraid of losing their harvest. And 2 weeks after this picture, a big flooding was coming, so the monsoon arrived, but however it ended so that they have had to replant everything and the total harvest. So this is a very real example of how rural livelihoods and rural women are threatened due to climate change. So in my point of view, for me, there are three main challenges we are facing. It's climate change and environmental degradation, as well as inequality due to the affiliation to certain minorities and inequality due to gender. And when we are combating climate change, we have the chance to increase equality and to empower women. But however, we must be aware that there is also the threat that women and other disadvantaged groups, such as indigenous communities, are even more affected from climate change impact, as they usually have a lower adaptive capacity. It's harder for them usually to react on climate change impacts, as they usually have less access to certain assets. And this leads me to the following questions I want to answer today. So what do we have to be aware of when implementing sustainable initiatives and combating climate change in regard to gender aspects? And what can we learn from sustainable initiatives in different contexts? So as you already mentioned, Carol, we did studies in different world regions on the impacts of sustainable initiatives, in this case organic farming, on rural livelihoods, on rural women in different contexts, as you can see here in Peru, Tanzania, and India. So why is this even relevant for us? We are connected with these female farmers through our consumptions, as they are producing cotton, as you can see here in one picture, for our clothes, for our textiles. And now I want to tell you a little bit more about the case study in India. Initially, it wasn't planned to focus that much on gender aspects, but we saw during the fieldwork that women had a very different experience than men when it comes within the same initiatives to the outcome, to the results for these male and female farmers. So we saw that women perceived positive impacts through this sustainable initiative. Through organic farming, they could improve their health conditions. So there was less exposure to toxic chemicals, and they could improve their food security situation, as well as households have been less financially dependent on external moneylenders. However, we saw that there was an existing gender gap regarding land ownership, like you already mentioned, Carol, and less access to education and a higher workload for female farmers. And as organic farming requires more work to produce organic fertilizers, to produce organic pesticides, this work had to be done mainly by women. So we saw that a widening of gender gaps, also because women haven't been the landowners, and they didn't get the certification and didn't get training on marketing activities and how to implement different aspects of agriculture. So we saw that the traditional role models strongly limit further positive impacts on women through sustainable initiatives, and we have to be aware of that. We know that climate change is a further big challenge for rural communities and for rural women. And as you can see here, it's projected that there is a tremendous decrease in agricultural productivity through climate change. And the question, especially in the Global South, and the question is, how can we increase the adaptive capacity of rural communities and rural women, both, and we are planning to do a research on that as well. yeah, we heard already before that rural women are especially vulnerable to climate change, as they are carrying a higher workload and have less access to land and in agriculture in general. And more women are working in agriculture. There is a direct and strong dependency on local weather conditions and on the local climate. So yeah, we need to acknowledge that gender is a core aspect, and it needs to be a core issue when implementing sustainable initiatives and when combating climate change. And it shouldn't be a side issue or on the sidelines, but it must be in the center when we implement yeah, something for the environment. We have to be aware that there are social issues as well. So yeah, to increase climate change adaptive capacity of rural women, we need to have access to, they need to get access to human capital. So by capacity building, and we need a prioritized access to financial means so that we can implement environmental initiatives, and that women will have an active role and are in the front row when combating climate change. And we need access to political capital so that female farmers, women, rural women, and women in general have a voice and are in the front row and get a seat on the table. Yeah, and I think this needs to be a priority. Yeah, we have to end, I think, a gender blindness in climate change policy and to establish gender sensitive programs. Yeah, I want to ask Theresia, how is the situation in Austria, in Europe? What institutional frameworks exist in Austria to support women in rural areas? Thank you for now.
Thank you, Christine, for giving me the floor. I will now share my presentation with you. I hope this is the right one. Can you see it? Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, in my presentation, I want to refer especially on the rural development policy and its program, which aims to improve the competitiveness in agriculture, the quality of the environment, as well as the life in the rural areas and the diversification of rural economies. This rural development policy provides to respond to the challenges of food safety, climate change, growth and jobs in rural areas. If we have a look on the figures of the agricultural workforce in the European Union, we can see that 35% of the workforce are females. And there are big differences between the countries. 29% of the farms are managed by women. Here is the gap very big. You can see 45 farm managers in Latvia and 5% in the Netherlands. And what is very important is that the farms of women are on the average 40% smaller than the men's farms. So, and we have also the situation that the farms are inherited to a great extent to the sons, and that women have not the same access to land as men have. But there is a trend in the last 1 or 2 decades that there are many new entrants in agriculture and that they are to a large extent female. For instance, in France, there are 37% of the new farmers are women. Nevertheless, there are hardly any women-specific support measures in the rural development programs of the member states of the European Women. And as Christine mentioned in her presentation, it is very important to have women-specific measures to foster their agency. Also, we in Europe have many challenges in rural areas because there are structural and social barriers for a self-determined lifestyle in rural areas for women. Restrictive gender stereotypes and patriarchal structures are still present in many regions, and often there is a lack of social infrastructure and services in the social and health sectors. Then a vibrant problem is also the outmigration of young women from often structurally weak regions to urban regions, and these have big effects to the demographic development of these regions. Yes, and I think stakeholders and politicians have to be aware that gender equality is enhancing the quality of life of people in rural areas and also a successful rural development. What is the contribution of women to vibrant rural areas in Europe? They are important rural and social innovators with a high economic, social and ecological transformative potential. For instance, they show great flexibility to provide the region with new, attractive and high quality products and services. They break with old traditions by turning to ecology, sustainability, and the use of local resources. And they demonstrate also high sensitivity for the needs of customers, as well for regional or place-based and resource-saving production. And they are very innovative, try out new things and questioning the conventional. And this may have effects both to their own occupational field, for instance, agriculture, but also in the region as a whole. But one experience or poor experiences which made rural women are with funding conditions, because often their startups or fundings are very special or new. There are no adequate instruments or funding measures for them. So as a result, they often used alternative financing models like crowdfunding. What are the needs for rural women? Christina have mentioned some of them, and I want to specify them for the European rural areas. There is a need for specific support structures like gender focal points or local enterprise offices for funding and startups by women in agriculture or other fields of economy. Furthermore, gender equality oriented advisory structures, trainings and services should be provided. Then women should be addressed as recipients of development programs and CAP strategic plans. And what is of really great importance is to support professional and social networks of rural women, and to enhance and foster the participation of women in local and regional decision-making bodies, to give them, as Christina also mentioned, give them a voice at the local and regional context. And what is also very important is to foster women as rural and social innovators, to give them an environment and circumstances that are promoting their agency, and also especially in the context of ecology, climate change, and environmental issues. So my conclusions would be that rural women are important drivers for sustainable and social inclusive development in rural areas, and they are really concerned about climate changes, and they are agents for combating this climate change. And a healthy and a sustainable environment is an important asset for people living in rural areas, and also for the whole population of a country, and that needs to be protected. And for the politicians and stakeholders, I think that in future, the CAP strategic plans should provide for concrete interventions that sufficiently take account to the specific needs of women in rural areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you both for your excellent presentations. We have a question that has come in, and to the audience, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A. But the question I'm referring to is from Margaret Owen, and she's asking about widows and the special role and circumstances of widows within the context of our discussion in rural women. Could you share what you have seen? And how many of these women, do you have a percentage of how many women are in those circumstances? And does that change for them as compared to women who may be married or who have children or are in different circumstances? So either of you or both of you, one at a time, want to take respond to that question?
I'm going to start. Thank you for the question. It's very interesting. I don't have exact numbers how many women are widows, but during the research, I realized that around 15% of the women were certified. So they have been active members and participated in certified groups. And many of these women have been widows. So through the absence of men, they got a more active role and have been more involved in those kind of activities. And I realized that they really got more confident and they had to take over this role. Yeah, so it's possible that and also rural women, if like the wives of certified members haven't been used to talk to strangers, and you could realize really a big difference. And those women have been empowered through the participation and through getting a more active role. So yeah.
Interesting. How about you, Teresa? Do you have
unfortunately, I have not exact figures, but I think that this question is important in regard to security systems, for instance, in the European Union. Which kind of old pension systems do the countries have, and which kind of social security? In Austria, for instance, the situation is rather good, and when the man has passed away, women are managing afterwards the farm. So there is the possibility to do that.
Fantastic. Yes, this is actually very personal for me. I have a cousin who is widowed, and who is a farmer and has had to carry on her own. Of course, she's in the United States, and one thing that she has done is in her agriculture create what they call community shares, and so she then sells these community shares, which has then allowed her to increase her economic well-being, and then she's able to invest back into her agricultural work and actually put into place some new technologies. So with that in mind, my next question is then about technology. Modernization is a powerful capacity to alter the world we live in. What are you seeing in your research and in your experience as the kinds of technologies that are making a difference, and how are they able to be implemented?
in the situation of the COVID-19 pandemic, we can see that this marketing via internet is was very rising, yeah, and especially farm women were trying to marketing their products via this new channel, or they intensified it. And I think it is very important that farm women are trained in such marketing via internet, and that they are aware about the technology, and also that the farms have access to fast internet connections. And I think in future these training courses should be intensified also for women on the farms, and also for the younger generation, that they are good in this technology.
Fabulous. Christine, do you have it? Christina, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it could be also a very big chance in the context I'm working on, so with cotton and supply chains, so that we can, or through, because all farmers had mobile phones, so there is an effort to make supply chains more, so more traceability, so increase the traceability, so that we know, or we more realize, or we get aware where is our clothes are coming from, or where is our coffee or chocolate coming from. So it's really a big chance to increase the awareness of where products are coming from, and to increase the wealth of rural areas in general. Yeah, I think it's a big chance.
Fantastic. Yes, I love going to the store and seeing the labels where the products are coming from, especially if it's something I'm familiar with, and I'm more likely to purchase those things. Exactly. Christine, here's a question for you, and she says, my question is to Christine. Do you by any means put the women in cluster to make coordinating their activities easier? I'm not sure what cluster is, so you'll have to enlighten us if you're aware of that.
So there, I don't fully understand also this clustering, or in which direction it should lead. But there was also a difference between between these women, and there was also a gender-sensitive program established, and mainly in a tribal area, in an indigenous area, because these women usually, or traditionally, have higher rights than other women in India, and they tried to establish and certified only female farmers. And there we saw that that it's possible, yeah, if there are less gender patterns, or traditional gender patterns, or more rights, that female farmers can profit even more from sustainable initiatives, and this in a direct way, and not only indirectly through their husbands. So there we saw that different measures really have a big impact. Yeah, and gender sensitive programs are really necessary. Yeah, although it's very challenging for these initiatives. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. One more question, and then we'll go on to the presentation by Barbara. The question is not the political side important? And that was mentioned in your presentation, that the women farmers are either politically active or are working side by side with one another. Do you know if this is taking place in India or in Europe? So what does the political activism look like in the areas you were researching, and how does that compare with what we're seeing in Europe?
If I may answer first. So I saw that this initiative really tried to empower farmers in general. Yeah, they really managed to provide training for farmers in general. And yeah, like I said, certified female and male farmers really got empowered, and they tried to establish these institutions so that there is collective action and there is solidarity, and through that they could increase their market power as well. So they really got empowered by doing their own marketing, not only via the project, but directly. And farmers got really very important, so got training on leadership as well. And we really could see very positive impacts through that for male and female farmers in general. So it shows again that it's possible, but still more for male farmers than for female farmers, like I said. However, through that they are getting used to exchange, and they could also exchange their personal experience, not only about cotton. And they try to establish women self-help groups, and they try to establish seed banks, and so through that they could empower themselves. But as you mentioned, it's not only on an individual or collective action level, but we need to make sure that women are involved in every political level, yeah, on a higher level in the region and beyond, on a national level as well. I think representation and role models are very important to change the situation we have now.
Fantastic. I appreciate that comment, and I thank you both for your tremendous presentations. Let's go on to the presentation from Barbara Kuntz, who will actually share an example of what you're just talking about the farmer who became very involved politically. Barbara is the president of the Swiss-based Bernese Federation of Rural Women Associations, an association of over 10,000 women farmers and rural women from a wide variety of occupations and age groups. Their initiatives relate to social, professional, economic, and cultural concerns, primarily on issues specific to rural women. They also foster mutual understanding between town and country, between consumers and producers. Barbara is a trained gardener, a federally certified farmer, and a certified caregiver in the rural area. The mother of 5 runs a farm with her husband in the canton of Bern. On the right to healthy environment, she says, and quote, "A healthy environment is a human right. For creating this sustainability, we need the social, environmental, and economic pillars in balance." So let's hear from Barbara Kuntz.
Live in rural areas is very attractive in Switzerland. In fact, a large proportion of women still live in rural areas. The close social ties and functioning neighborhood support, as well as the upholding of traditions and rituals, are positive values in the countryside. Diligence, down-to-earthness, and solidarity are considered characteristic of the Swiss rural population. Women take a central role in the structure, or rather a true variety of roles, for it is mostly women who are responsible for family, education, and child raising. Likewise, the care of the older people is in their hands, and they are driving forces as modern entrepreneurs. Women, as the European Parliament summarizes in a study, make a significant contribution to innovation and progress, as well as to an increase in the quality of life in rural areas. But does the countryside as a living space still offer women prospects for the future today? For the right to a healthy environment to be granted, 3 basic pillars are necessary: the social, the economic, and the ecological pillar. In the apparently rich Switzerland, the social dimension for women especially women in rural areas, is still very much in need of improvement. Farm women in particular are in a vulnerable position. The increasing number of calls to the care hotline for farmers shows that there is a great need for action. National and cantonal women farmers associations are calling for social security to be included in the new agriculture policy 2022 so that progress can be made. Central to this is that women who work without adequate pay and without social insurance are no longer wrongly considered to be inactive. Women farmers must have equal conditions and employed people. Women farmers continue to think and act the terms of caring for the family and the farm. Sustainable farm thinking, i.e. the preservation of the farm by one's own generation, is at the forefront of their wishes. However, the feminization of agriculture, especially in smallholder and part-time farms, must be viewed critically. Moreover, women's labor in rural areas is seen as a natural resource that can be exploited indefinitely. This is also reflected in the incomplete financial security of this woman. A farmer's wife who has worked on her partner's farm for many years of her life without a regular income faces great financial difficulties after a divorce. Those who do not receive a salary are only insufficiently socially protected. The following example will illustrate this problem. Eva had worked on her husband's farm for 15 years and built up a flourishing bakery. She employed 3 women as farmers from the neighborhood and had working hours of up to 17 hours a day. With the divorce, not only the farm but also her job fell away, and with a large part of the livelihood of the mother of 3. Because a farmer's wife is considered self-employed, she could not receive unemployment benefits. She never received a salary over the years. The couple invested all their income in the farm. A lot of money, of which she hardly saw anything after the divorce. As the wife of a farmer, you are not awarded half on what you have earned together in the event of a divorce, as is usually the case. The reason for this is the rural land law, which favors the person who's owned a farm so as not to endanger the continuity of the farm. However, the agriculture policy environment in Switzerland also exerts great pressure, even if we won't manage to strengthen the social pillar so that women in rural areas can live their social status fairly. The interaction for the ecological and economic pillar accompanies us. Women as consumers and producers, managers of their families and educators, play an important role in promoting sustainable development by caring for the quality of life and sustainability of present and future generations. On the one hand, there are the entrepreneurs of the second processing stage who face international competition and are so directly affected by shopping tourism and the declining competitiveness of their suppliers. They want less border protection overall and deregulation of the economy. On the other side are the farming families and the processors at the first level, who hardly know how to count the price and thus also the cost pressure. Society's great interest in agriculture is nice. The political debate, on the other hand, everyone claims to want sustainable agriculture and to know good solutions. A factual and respectful debate of seems impossible. This is not primarily the result of different economic interests, but of the fundamentally different attitudes and values. In agriculture policy, decisions are hardly ever made on the basis of facts, but on the basis of ideas and feelings. Modern agriculture faces numerous challenges. It must produce high quality, safe, and affordable food, contribute to the supply of energy and raw materials, and protect the climate, water, and biodiversity. At the same time, a cultural landscape that is also attractive for the other sectors, such as tourism and local recreation, is to be preserved. The current problem for us is rather that some legal requirements can no longer be met by farmers and their families due to a lack of practicality. In addition, conflicting goals are ignored in legislative processes and the farmers is left alone to implement contradictory objectives. While, for example, the possibilities of plant protection are decreasing, on the other hand, the demands of the trade as well as the consumer for flawless product quality are increasing. Ultimately, the entrepreneurial risk remains with the farm, while freedom of decision and options for action are massively restricted. In addition, farming families are continuously confronted with new requirements on the one hand, while on the other, customs duty exemptions or reduced import quotas open the door to imports produced with significantly lower standards. Thus, a better quality of life in rural areas can only succeed if the concern of ecology, economic and social aspects are considered in the balanced way. With their competences, women and living with their competences, women and live rural regions. It should be noted that the demands of women and their needs have changed significantly. Affordable housing, jobs, childcare, internet access, public transports, and village infrastructures are no basic requirements for a young woman to decide to live in the countryside. Today, every woman should be able to earn a living in rural areas as well. This is a challenge for politics. The inclusion of women with their views and experiences in political discussions and decisions is therefore an essential condition. At the end of March, the International Conference Women in Agriculture will take place in Bern. Women farmers and professionals from the social and economic professional fields will exchange views on the living conditions of women in rural areas. The results of this conference are eagerly awaited and are intended to provide women in rural areas with increased security and perspectives. After all, what works on a small scale in rural families can also work on a large scale, and so the mostly female core competences of empathy, communication skills, and a willingness to compromise are crucial. not only for cohesion in the family, but also for work in political committees, associations, and companies.
So I want to thank Barbara for her amazing effort to speak in English to us, and her message, which is so critically important. It's time to conclude, but I just want to note that the final statement of empathy, communication, and really reaching understanding is so essential as we try to make a difference in the political arena. And her examples were excellent. So today on this panel, we've heard statistics and challenges faced by rural women across the globe. But we've also heard that women can and do offer important solutions. And that in times of crisis and against all odds, when they're given the opportunity to do so, they take on the leadership roles and begin to make change. Rural women are a key part of the dialogue of women as strong and important change makers. And as they are learning to increase their adaptive capacity to be prepared in issues of climate change, they organize, they educate and train, they get involved, they act based on knowledge, and implement those three interdependent pillars that Barbara was talking about, for a healthy environment through social, economic, and ecological changes, and their advocacy and influence in policies and practices, as it's done with that empathy and with a desire to reach understanding and compromise and good communication, has already made differences and will continue to do so. Rural women are critically important to social innovation, and the connection that we all have, the relationship that we all have as human beings with the world around us and how we value it is so important. And it's important that each one of us consider personally what we choose to do to participate in this effort and to make a difference. Sometimes we hear that reduce, reuse, and recycle, or things like catchphrases like that. But I think it's really important that we all, after listening to these presentations, consider in our own area what we will do to join the effort to increase the capacity to be prepared in the instance of climate change, and to be able to be a part of creating the clean, healthy environment that we want to live in now and that we want to present to the rising generation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful presentation. As we see with all your comments and feedbacks, we feel so happy to take the lead and inspiration from such experts into a very youthful engagement. Now we shall be moving into an interactive young session led by young activists and advocates for climate and women's rights who are going to be with us today. Before that, I'm Shruti Lekha, and I am the Assistant Secretary for the NGO CSW Geneva's Bureau. I'm also working with the Youth Task Force of the NGO CSW Geneva, and I personally work with Women's Federation for World Peace in Geneva as well. So I am so happy to be introducing to you with me three young, very talented women from different parts of the world who will be engaging you all in a very interactive session of knowledge sharing and getting up into a nice, engaging session. It will be a very interactive quiz. but it will be a very easy and a simple one. It will be more for our purpose for exchanging knowledge and some facts which we might not have known. So please allow me to introduce to you Ms. Vanita Deshpande. She's from India. She is a student of triple majors in economics, political science and sociology in Bangalore in India. And we have followed by Vanita, we have Leonie Barnas, who is a law student representing the NGO Women's International Zionist Organization, working as the UN representative in Vienna, and and she is also very active in the Young Generation Working Group. And finally, last but not the least, we have Aileen Roy, who's very young. She is a student in Vienna, studying doing her final year in high school, who is also very, very active member in the Young Generation Working Group from Vienna. And we're so happy to have all the three leading you into this engagement.
Shruti, can you confirm if I am audible?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. So I'm Vanita Deshpande. I'm from India, and we'll have a very interactive quiz. And I'm going to drop the link of the quiz here, and I'll also share my screen. Can one of you, Leonie, or one of you can just confirm if my screen is visible? Okay, so you can use this code also. So if you're using the code, just go and type mentimeter.com on Google or whichever browsing you use, and just type this code, which is 2374890, and we'll begin as soon as everyone joins the quiz. If anyone needs any sort of help or guidance, just unmute or put it in the chat box. We'll try and help everyone out. Please begin as soon as possible. We'll begin shortly. We haven't started with the questions yet. We'll do that as soon as everyone joins. Just another 1 or 2 minutes. All right, so it's the of us, and I think we can begin. Others can join us whenever they are able to. Just let me know if if there's any problem from my side while sharing the questions. So I'll quickly begin with the first 3 questions. So the question is, globally, what is the proportion of seats held by women in the national parliament? So this is all over the world. So the options are 75%, 20%, and 25%. You'll all see the options on your screen, so please do vote. Right, so the correct answer is 25.5%. So as we'll take about another 50 years to actually reach that kind of gender parity, and no doubt it's still a better since last year, which is 2020, but we still have a very long way to go. So the next question. In one word, describe how you perceive the relationship between climate change and gender inequality. So you all have to think of the first word that comes in your mind when you think of the relationship between climate change and gender inequality. So you can just start typing your answers. Disproportionate. Integral, definitely. Problematic, unfortunate. Inseparable, for sure. Very relevant. Unfair. I think a lot of us believe it's disproportionate. A lot of us are answering that. Women rights, definitely. Right. So I think these are some really, really great answers. Thank you. And I'll move on to the next question. It's again a multiple choice question. In 2004, more women in Thailand died of tsunami than men because, so these are the 4 options. They stayed back looking for children. They were culturally not taught swimming. There were more men than women, and both 1 and 2, the first and the second option. Right, so most of us have answered both 1 and 2, which is the correct answer. About 70% of the people who died because of the tsunami were women, and there were about 2.5 lakhs of women who died because of the tsunami. So I now invite Leonie to carry on with the quiz.
Hello, thank you very much, Vanita. My name is Leonie. I'm joining you today from Tel Aviv, Israel. And thank you very much for inviting me to this amazing event. So I will continue with the quiz now. So the third question is, increased arsenic concentration in water affects women because of, and here you have again 4 options. So the first one is reduces the chances of single women to get married. Then should travel long a distance to fetch uncontaminated water, results to crop failure, or all of the above. So let's see the answers. And yes, indeed, the right answer is the 4th one. So the first option is it reduces the chances of single women to get married because arsenic contamination hardens skin and increases pigmentation. Secondly, they need to travel longer distances because the water causes cancers and diseases. So the women who are responsible for the households need to take longer distances. And the third right answer was the results to crop failure. And it's true because it affects root growth in crops. So on a general note, I want to add that the detection of arsenic poisoning is often challenging because the effects are not apparent in the short term. So women might be poisoned without being really able to treat it as the poisoning appears only on a later stage, and it makes the whole situation even more difficult for women. So furthermore, I would like to add that stereotypically women in rural households are taking care of the households and are concerned with cooking and washing, so women are more directly exposed to contaminated water. And one last point is that exposure to arsenic contaminated drinking water in early pregnancies might aggravate the pregnancy. So preventing exposure to this arsenic contaminated drinking water during pregnancy could improve the maternal health. So yes, and now we will continue for the next question. Okay. So women are more vulnerable than men due to the impacts of climate change because they represent a majority of the rich, are engaged in subsistence agriculture, are less dependent on natural resources, or are well access to decision-making process. So let's see the answers. And yeah, exactly. The right answer is the second one. Also here, I want to give some small explanation. 70% of the 1.3 billion people living under condition of poverty are women. Poor, as mentioned before already, poor are expected to be disproportionately affected and are in the greatest need of adaptation and strategies in regard to climate change. Both women and men working in natural resources sectors are likely to be affected. However, the impact is not the same. Women are increasingly being seen as more vulnerable, mainly because they represent the majority of the world's poor and are proportionately more dependent on threatened natural resources. The difference between men and women can also be seen in their different roles, responsibilities, decision-making, or access to land and natural resources. And I want to add that in spite of their vulnerability, women should not be seen as victims of climate change, but they can also be seen as an active and effective agent of adaptation. Women have historically developed skills related to water storage, food preservation, and natural resource management. So women have a really important role in this situation. Now, thank you very much for listening. Now I will hand over to Lean, who will continue with the quiz. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonie. I'm joining from Vienna, and let's just keep moving. So the next question is, women's vulnerability increases due to lack of education because they are, it's a multiple choice question. The first being more dependent on their families. The second, more employable. Third, can easily move beyond their boundaries. And the last one, none of the above. So the answer is they're actually more dependent on their families. And there are a couple of reasons why that's the case. One of which being that through having limited education, they have limited or fewer employment opportunities. And by having fewer employment opportunities, they have really little room to move beyond their hometowns. So they become dependent on their families, and especially if there's any disaster that strikes in their hometowns, they are sadly very affected by it and vulnerable. The second thing being, it's well known, sadly, that women who have limited education or less education are more likely to have children at a younger age. Women are also the main caregivers of children, parents, partners, and their families in general. So they are very dependent with their family because they are the ones protecting them and making sure that they're okay. Moving on to the next question. So the second question that I'd be talking about is, following is not necessary for connecting women and disaster risk reduction. It's also a multiple choice question. The first being leverage capacity of women's organization. The second, collaborate with multilateral organizations. The third, integrate gender dimensions in preparedness and recovery. And the last being none. And the answer is also that actually, okay, let's wait on the results, I guess. Okay. All right. So it's still deciding, but the answer is actually none. It's crucial and extremely important that women get all the help and anything in this situation, and it assists in greater gender balance. as well as it's really important to understand that women are in the front lines of these disasters, and they take care of and take responsibility for their families, for everything around them. So any kind of assistance helps them, and helping them helps these families. This is it for the questions, and we can now be seeing the leaderboard. Yes. Okay, so the highest points is 4,045 to Sally. Congratulations. So thank you for this, and hopefully you might have learned something throughout this quiz.
Thank you so much. It has been a wonderful engagement. It was very interesting. Thank you so much to all our young representatives who've done a great job. It is a really important thing for us to understand how factually that women and girls are affected because of the disasters, climate change, and other policies that we have, as well as we see from the first question, as we discussed, in how many women are actually present in the decision-making processes in the parliaments, to the actual women who are getting hit because of natural disasters, who are suffering from unhealthy environments and contaminations. Everything has a strong link. Women are crucial parts in all these processes to not just protecting the rights of women and girls, but also in general climate and environment. It has been a wonderful journey for us as the young team to also learn such facts and learn more facts, because these facts actually help us understand the situation even more stronger. As we see the natural disasters, be it the natural disasters and the climate right to our a clean environment, as we have been discussing in the CSW consultation day today, and also we will be doing with the CSW, it is very crucial that we as young people also take a very strong role in these discussions. And this is a very small step for us as young people ahead in this process. On that note, I take pride in actually sharing with you all the success of the NGO CSW Global Youth Conference on the CSW, which was hosted this early January, where we actually engaged in young people simulating the UN CSW itself. So it happened on the 15th and 16th of January, and we discussed, we had 100 young people registered who took the importance and sincereness in learning through the process. So they learned how the CSW works, they got into the roles of these leaders of the member states, and they worked with the actual rules of procedure of the UN CSW and worked on different focuses, debating on different important agendas, from technology to adaptation policies and etc., to reach and write a draft agreed conclusion, which is as follows. We read, as you see, this draft agreed conclusion has 18 wonderful points, and these points were out of a very hard debate in just 2 days. So this is something which we are really proud of, and we feel like these kind of engagements are really crucial. And one important part of this was the intergenerational process and inclusive civil society model process that we involved in the simulation of the CSW itself. This actually brought us more results in bringing together not just men, women, and girls, but also men and boys from all around the world to actually convey their needs and convert them into policies. This shows how crucial it is for civil society to take part in such processes in the decision making, not only in the CSW, but also with governments at local bodies to national bodies and to many more regional agreements and so on. And also we took a very intergenerational process where we had a lot of briefings, trainings and discussions with experienced experts from all around the world who brought in experiences about disaster management, about right to healthy environment and so on. So this was a success story that we felt using this model, and we would love to urge our colleagues, and also we advocate the United Nations to help us do the same by actually involving more civil society and youth into the process. And following this success, we are now working really hard to actually mobilize this draft agreed conclusion that we had written out of the Young Committee into the CSW itself. We will be sharing this material, this agreed conclusion with you later in the process. But for now, we just wanted to say and show you and encourage the other young people all around the world, and also the young participants who are listening to us now today, to fight, to voice and to engage with civil society and the United Nations in claiming your right to clean, healthy environment, and also working towards gender equality for the same. Thank you so much, and see you all with more resources.
There's a global framework already in place. At COP25 of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, held in 2019, parties agreed on a 5-year enhanced Lima work program on gender and its gender action plan. It aims to enhance women's leadership in climate negotiations and to mainstream gender equality in climate policies and actions. The latest research shows more women in positions of power correlates with more attention to sustainability and climate issues. But in both national delegations and the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change bodies, women are still significantly underrepresented in decision-making. So what more can parliamentarians do? First, advocate, support implementation of the Lima Gender Action Plan, and call on your country to integrate gender equality into national climate policies. Second, educate. Support intersectional climate education for both schools and your parliamentary colleagues. Third, promote. Call for women's full, equal, and meaningful participation in climate leadership at all levels. And finally, act. Be a role model by starting or joining a parliamentary working group to promote gender-responsive climate action and green COVID-19 response.
Wow, that video sums a lot in terms of action points, and we really take inspiration from such really impactful action points. And with that inspiration, we've actually worked for the past few weeks with our young teams in a very intergenerational process from both Vienna and Geneva, consulting different experts as well to write a declaration that we feel calls the impact, calls for action, calls for more commitment to our right to clean and healthy environment. you can access. We have also written this declaration in the form of a petition, which will be available to you if you click the link, or you can scan the QR code. I will also put the link in the chat where you can click on the link, and you can click on the link, and you can go onto this link and basically sign the petition for us. As you see here, there's the petition for you, and if you click the link which I had shared, you will get on this petition where we have written our declaration. This declaration will also be posted on our websites, both NGO CSW Geneva and Vienna, where you can download it as a PDF document soon after the conference, soon after this consultation day, during the conference, during the CSW, and you can use it for your mobilization. So this is the declaration, and we call upon several stakeholders, and we call upon member states to increase action, commitment in various roles, in various sectors, from youth to rural to disaster management and so on. So support us by actually signing this petition. All that you have to do is put your name, surname, and then the email, and then just sign it. And once we reach a very high number of support, we can use this to actually raise more support with the governments, with the United Nations, and so on. This is something that we have done to create and call for action. But we also need to share resources and knowledges that will help us do this, will help us mobilize more. And therefore, we have created an advocacy resource material, which shall help you to not just share knowledge, but also to learn. Because this, when we look at this topic, very broad topic of climate change and disaster management, it is very difficult for us to understand the intricacies in how women are how girls are impacted because of that. And that is why we have prepared an advocacy resource tool, which will also available to you. We will be sharing this in the chat, and you can also find it on our websites later. This has several different conventions, treaties, reports, summaries, which we believe have a very strong impact or a very strong say with resources, facts, and so many opinions, valid opinions from various global movements, to this topic, to our topic of human rights, to clean and healthy environment. So please check this. You are more than welcome to use this, to share it with your local networks, to the grassroots networks who can get more impact. And if you would like to, there's also a link where you can sign and view the declaration, which we have written as well. And you also, if you would like to join our advocacy network to receive more information about our work towards our human right to clean and healthy environment, and also to engage your advocacy with our networks, you are more than welcome to join by clicking the link. Everything is there in the advocacy resources, and we will be sharing with you all. And saying that, I take so much honor in actually being able to share this with you. And I'm so happy and proud to have been part of this intergenerational process. And I give back the floor to both our wonderful presidents from Geneva and Vienna, Mrs. Carolyn Hanschens and Mrs. Evelyn Dermeyer.
Thank you, Shruti, so much. And I hope everyone that is, I mean, it's of course, it's hard to maybe drink it in, all these resources that are there, but I think this really gives probably anyone, anywhere of any age who would like to engage themselves in some kind of different community or local action, different support and, you know, encouragement actually to do that. And hopefully through this petition, also to create this network, which we know is very, very empowering to know that we have people across the globe, or even you meet people in the next city that you didn't know were interested like you are, and be able to create this kind of, this kind of sense of global campaign. And of course, also this idea that we are not just working in our local place, but that we are, even connecting to the work of the United Nations, to the Sustainable Development Goals. All these things also are very, very empowering and can bring us really closer together, like a feeling of global family as we really work on this issue and see changes in our world. So I just want to maybe say thank you so much to all those who have been working all this time. There are some who are not, whose faces haven't come up, who are very, very, involved. Laurie Richardson from, maybe Evelyn, you were going to say that, but maybe I will beat you to it. Laurie Richardson from Vienna, who really has worked so hard, and Inge, and also from Geneva, Rachel, who was working with Shruti very much, also Bert and Paula, different members of our committee in Geneva. And just really thank you so much for all this opportunity, which we really believe is not just an event, but this is really an opportunity for us to really continue this conversation and really do like we all want to do, to really impact things around us. So thank you again to everyone. Sorry, Evelyn.
Thank you for me to follow your words. I don't have very much to add to this. I'm really thrilled with this combination of, scientist and a gardener introducing us to the rural and agricultural world, and how it is hard but still possible to have great initiatives wherever they are, and that there is also the part from the youth. Thank you to all of you. Maybe we have forgotten some of them. And I thank also Margaret Owen. I know her for many years, that when David Boyd made a list that we should include widows who play also a crucial role in this work at the rural level. And yes, we have a long way still to go. As I said at the beginning, we cannot stop our activities. We must carry on, and we have to combine our efforts to move on forwards in every area, at the UN level, at the national level, regional level, and at the community level as well. So thank you, all of you who participated, and also those who were listening and having questions that were also essential for our event. And I hope it's not the last event, because the issue of the human right of a safe and healthy environment will not leave us for a long time, I think, or even at all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please join us for what is becoming our theme song for our consultation days.
Forward. Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Sigamos adelante. Siempre adelante. Siempre adelante. sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on loving boldly, keep on loving boldly, keep on loving boldly, never turning back, never turning back. Amaremos con pasión, siempre con pasión, siempre con pasión, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna reach across our borders, reach across our borders, reach across our borders, never turning back, never turning back. Vivamos sin fronteras, siempre sin fronteras, siempre sin fronteras, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna reunite the family, reunite the family, reunite the family, never turning back, never turning back. Familias reunidas, siempre reunidas, siempre reunidas, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, never turning back, 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 never turning back.
Peace.
We love you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good CSW 66.
Never turning back.
Hi, Lori. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Evelyn, have a good time in New York.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm sure I forgot to thank someone. Thank you, everyone. It was a teamwork, really.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks.
Thank you. Your behind the scenes work. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Okay.
We couldn't have done it without you, Rachel. Thank you.
Yeah.